Hello everyone, welcome back to Krishna's lectures. We shall now study the next part of living world, which is the diversity in the living world. When we say diversity, like honestly speaking, we can skip the whole topic of this chapter because we are going to study something called diversity in detail in 12th. In 12th, we would be studying about biodiversity very much in detail, but still, we are going to briefly address this here. The important statement here in the first paragraph is that we have to learn what is biodiversity, how many species are there, and what is the relationship between the area and the number of species. This is something that we have to understand. Okay. Here the statement here which says if you were to increase the area that you make observation in, the range and variety of organisms that you see would increase. Obviously, if you were to visit a dense forest, you would probably see a much greater number and kinds of living organism in it. This statement is very important and it is supposed to be remembered. Why is this statement so important? See, the thing is, if we consider a desert, in desert we would not have, so many organisms. Say we consider 1 square centimeter in a desert, we would find, say, only so many organisms. When we consider like 4 square centimeter, okay, 4 square centimeter, 4 times this area, we would find much more organisms. This is in desert or any other land. If we consider a dense forest, what happens? If we consider a dense forest, even if I take square centimeter, I would be able to find so many organisms, because that is what is this biodiversity. And we have a hotspot and all of these in 12th chapter, biodiversity. We would be studying there. The meaning of the statement is just this: in any other area, if we take a some area and see, we would find very small number of species. But we consider dense forest, we have lot of species surviving in a very small area, because that forest is dense. And we have something called as hotspot, and we have in situ, ex situ, all of those. Basically, that means to say, when we are trying to conserve biodiversity, we have in situ and ex situ. In situ means you go to the forest and you cover so much area and you preserve this is in situ. Ex situ means, suppose if there is only one tiger here, it doesn't make sense to be converting so much of, to be preserving so much of area. You just take this lion and keep it in a zoo. So keeping the organisms in the animals in zoo is ex situ, that is outside the forest. Keeping animals in the forest and preserving is in situ. So this is something we will be reading in biodiversity. And the number of species, 1.7 to 1.8 million, this is something that has to be well read and understood, because we are going to have like three more numbers for the number of species. Basically, there are three people who have proposed three numbers. 1.7 to 1.8 million is the accepted one. Next, in this paragraph, as stated earlier, there are millions of plants and animals in the world. Basically, this you have to understand, these local names would vary from place to place. We know the plants and animals in our own area by their local names, right? We call them by local names. Imagine these local names would vary from place to place. Obviously, even within a country, probably you would recognize the confusion that would be created if we did not find ways and means to talk to each other to refer to organisms we are talking about. Basically, in this paragraph, he is trying to highlight the need of nomenclature. Okay, what is the need for this nomenclature? There is a very what do I say, a big need to do nomenclature and to do identification, because If we keep referring to an organism by local names, there would be a lot of confusion. What, suppose if I call a dog tiger and you call a dog lion, then there would be so much of confusion. That is the reason why we need something called as nomenclature, and before doing nomenclature we have to identify the organism. So in this paragraph what we are going to learn is the steps that have to be taken before doing nomenclature. First you have to identify the organism, that is called as identification. Definitely a question can be asked in it. They can ask you what is identification and what is nomenclature. You first do identification and then do nomenclature. You cannot do it other way around. We are going to identify a dog and then say that in Kannada you call it Nai, in Hindi you call it Kutta, and then you have identified the dog and you call it dog. I mean, dog is the name given in English, right? In biology we would be calling dog as Canidae. Dog actually belongs to family Canidae. You would be reading it, okay? In order to facilitate this study, number of scientists have established procedures to assign a scientific name to each known organism. For plants, for plants, scientific names are based on agreed principles and criteria, which are provided in International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. That means, I once again repeat, for plants, scientific names and are based on agreed principles and criteria. If you identify a new plant, if you have to give it a name, that is nomenclature, you have to follow the principles that are agreed and are given in International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. Do you understand? International Code for Botanical Nomenclature has all the codes. Suppose if you identify a new or animal and you want to name it, where are the agreed principles and criteria for animals? It is there in International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. Here all the zoology, that is all the animals, however you have to name an animal, those rules are given in ICZN. We have to know that biologists follow universally accepted principles to provide scientific names to known organisms. Each name has two components. Okay, each name has two components: the generic name and specific epithet. This system of naming an organism with two components is called as binomial nomenclature and has been given by Carolus Linnaeus. This is important. Suppose we have mango. We are going to call mango what in binomial nomenclature? Mangifera indica. This is the name for mango. So this is something that we have to understand. I once again repeat the whole thing. We are now studying the diversity in living world. Here we read that there is lot of diversity, that is we are studying animals here in biology. When there are 1.7 to 1.8 millions of species, we need to identify them, name them and then study. How are we going to do it? We are going to first identify them and then give them a name. The rules for giving name for plants is there in ICBN. For animals it is given in ICZN, biological nomenclature, zoological nomenclature. There is a way of naming the organisms that you give two components to the name of every organism. That is called as binomial. Bi means two, nomial means name. Two components, like the organisms have two components in their name. This was given by Carolus Linnaeus, and the two components are the first being generic name and the second being specific epithet. Now we will be reading the rules that have to be followed while writing or printing, and then read the taxonomical hierarchy and the examples. What are the rules that we have to follow? Suppose if we say mango has this name Mangifera indica, Mangifera refers to the generic name, and then indica refers to what? Specific epithet. There are universal rules of this binomial nomenclature. Universal rules of nomenclature, that is binomial nomenclature, are: biological names are generally in Latin and written in italics. They are Latinized or derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. That means to say, all the names Mangifera, Indica, Homo sapiens, all these names are in Latin. There can be a question asked. You have to understand this, that if humans were called humans, then human is actually an English word. So that means to say the English name is not accepted. Only Latin is accepted here. All the biological names of all the organisms are in Latin language, and even if their origin is not Latin, they are Latinized. What is the meaning of this? I will give you an example. In Sanskrit, you have a word called patha. Okay, this is the meaning. This patha has been turned into an English word. That means patha has become path. Okay, patha has become path. That means to say, I can say now that this Sanskrit word has been converted to English. In the same way, any whatever is the origin of the name, biological name, they are Latinized. They are converted to Latin language. And when they are written, they are supposed to be written in italics. That means they have to be tilting to the right like this. They cannot be standing straight, not in bold, but in italics. They have to be slanting. Suppose if I have to write Latin, this is actually writing Latin normally. If I have to write Latin in italics, it would become like this, Latin. Everything has to be slanted. This is the meaning of the word italics. Now, the first word in biological nomenclature represents the genus, that is, Mangifera represents genus, the Indica represents specific epithet. The second component denotes specific epithet. Both the words in a biological name, when handwritten, are separately underlined. When printed, it is supposed to be in italics. That is to indicate their Latin origin. I will come to this. The first word denoting the genus starts with a capital letter. That is, Mangifera starts with capital letter, and Indica, the specific epithet, starts with a small letter indica. This is illustrated with the example Mangifera indica. I didn't explain the meaning of the third sentence. What does it mean? When handwritten, if I am going to write Mangifera indica, I will not be writing it in italics. I will be writing it straight. Mangifera indica. This Mangifera is supposed to be underlined, Indica is supposed to be underlined separately. This rule is there only for handwriting, when written by hand. That this rule denotes that it is of Latin origin. If it is printed, okay, if it is printed, it is supposed to be like this. Suppose imagine my handwriting, whatever I am writing is actually printed. Mangifera, it is in italics, M is in capital, M is in capital. This rule is all the time, is applied all the time. Mangifera indica. Indica is also italicized. It is in italics, and there is no need for underlining when printed. Only when handwritten, because it cannot be written in italics. Sorry. Only when handwritten it is underlined. So this is the rule, and understanding these four rules is very very important because questions can be asked and they can be twisted. I once again repeat. First, word represents genus, the second represents species. When handwritten and when printed, the first letter has to be in capital and the second letter has to be the first letter of the second word has to be in small. This is both when handwritten and printed, but when handwritten it is supposed to be underlined separately, but when printed it is printed in italics and there is no need for underlining it. Okay, so we shall now study the meaning of the word taxa and what is taxonomy. Okay, and what is the need for classification is what we are understanding here. We are understanding the need for classification here. See, since it is nearly impossible to study all the living organisms, it is necessary to devise some means to take this possible. This process is classification. Classification is the process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories based on some easily observable characters. For example, we easily recognize groups such as plants or animals or dogs, cats, or insects. The moment we use any of these terms, we associate certain characteristics with the organisms in the group. Imagine, I will give you an example. Okay, when we say we are mammals, there is a certain character that is associated with mammals, that is mammary glands. We are going to study this in animal kingdom chapter. Okay, mammals have mammary glands. That is a rule that has been associated with mammals. So if you, so instead of reading like say n number of organisms and saying that this organism has mammary gland, this organism has mammary gland, that is cat has mammary gland, dog has mammary gland, humans have mammary gland, instead of going about this way, wouldn't isn't it nice to to put all the organisms who have mammary glands into one category as of mammals? So when you say this organism belongs to mammals, then mammals, this group of mammals, then you can easily say that this organism has mammary gland. This is the meaning of it. Okay, this is why we need classification. Now we have to understand what is taxa. The scientific term for these is taxa. This is important. I will come back to this statement. Dogs, cat, mammals, wheat, rice, plants, animals, etc. are convenient categories we use to study organisms. This scientific term for these categories taxa. Here you must recognize that taxa can indicate categories at very different levels. Plants also form a taxa, wheat is also a taxa. Similarly, animals, mammals, dogs are all taxa, but you know that dog is a mammal and mammals are animals. Therefore, animals, mammals, dogs represent taxa at different level. Hence, based on characteristics, all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. This process is known as taxonomy. External and internal structure, along with the structure of cell, developmental process, ecological information of organisms are all essential and form the basis of modern taxonomic studies. So here we are trying to understand the meaning of the word taxa. Taxa is basically a group in which you put few animals in it and you try to study. The group can be very different. Suppose we talk about when I say group, say that humans are human is, that is homo sapiens, humans, they form a group. They belong to a group of mammals. Mammals is again taxa. Mammals actually belong to animals. They belong to vertebrates. That is a taxa. Animal is a taxa. So you have like separation, like group, and the groupism, yeah, this groupism is going to be very helpful when it comes to understanding and reading about any organism. This is the meaning of the word taxa. Taxa represents, you know like the word taxa represents it represents a category at different levels. Okay, the definition of taxa can be so: taxa represents categories at different levels. The scientific name for these categories is taxa. I hope you understood this. This type of studying, that is this type of classification of organism and studying it, is known as taxonomy. Okay, for taxonomy, again I repeat the meaning of the word taxonomy. Taxonomy means it is actually a way. Taxonomy is the process. It is the process which involves classifying of the organisms into different taxa, that is into different categories. We are dividing the organisms, like say 1.7 to 1.8 million is the biodiversity. We are categorizing it into different groups, and each group we are studying. This is actually the meaning of the word taxonomy. Okay, taxonomical hierarchy or taxonomical classification, all these words we will use, and we are going to come across in the subsequent topics in this chapter. Taxonomy means the process of classification is taxonomy. What is the process? Classify the all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. Into taxa means different groups. This is taxonomy. So what is the basis we are going to consider for taxonomical study? We are going to consider external and internal structure. External and internal structures. We are going to consider evolutionary information. We are going to consider developmental process, and along with it we are going to also consider structure of cell. These 4 points are actually used in classifying the organisms into different groups: external and internal structure, evolutionary relationship, development, structure of the cell. These are the ones that are considered. Okay, this is how we consider these features of all the organisms are considered, and they are grouped and are studied. Hence, characterization, identification, classification, nomenclature are the processes that are basic to taxonomy. So, taxonomical classification means we are going to first characterize an organism, characterization, then we are going to identify the organism, and then we are going to classify it, and then we are going to give it a name. This is actually the process followed in taxonomy. Okay, suppose you find a new organism which is like this. You are going to first this is how the organism actually looks. You never know, there can be an organism like this. You identified it. What are you going to do? Next step is to consider all these points: external structure and internal structure, evolutionary relationship, development, and structure of the cell. You are going to consider all of these features, and then you are going to characterize it. You are going to identify the organism, classify it, and name it. So this is something which has to be marked really well, because the steps involved in taxonomical classification can be asked. So this is what is taxonomical category that we were talking about. Okay, so we have species, genus, family, order, class, phylum or division, and kingdom. We use the word phylum for animals and we use the word division for plants. So you have to understand this. We will be looking into the meaning of the word taxonomical category, taxa, all those things later in the next video. Now we shall understand what is this: species, genus, family, order, class, phylum, and kingdom. Once we mug it up, it would become much easier to be understanding the taxonomical category. I once again repeat, I am going to repeat it 2-3 times so that you also mug it up and we can go ahead later in the next video, that is tomorrow. Species, genus, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom. 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 I once again repeat, mug it up: species, genus, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom. I repeat again: species, genus, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom. Species, genus, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom. Species, genus, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom. Okay, I'm sure these three are much easier to remember: species, genus, family. Phylum, kingdom is also easy to remember. Order, class, FOC. Okay, this you remember, FOC. This will help you navigate this confusing part. Species, genus, family is easy. Phylum, kingdom is easy. But family, order, class, these three are little confusing. I sometimes mess order and class together. So in the while recollecting the order. So FOC, remember, FOC. So family, order, class. That's all we have for today. Thank you.